Coach Dalton just spoke of a players-only meeting that they had. What are your thoughts on those things?
Well, I think if it's if it's going to be productive, then I think it's appropriate. I trust Dalton, and Dalton wanted to talk with players and elicit thoughts from the players at the same time, and we've done it before. I think you got to have a great deal of trust in your players in order to consent, to allow that to happen. Although they have control over whether they get together or not. But I think it went well, from what I understand.
Is that kind of like the special play you practice for a game? You got to know when to pull it out, use it at the right time.
Well, there's probably some truth to that, as well. Yeah, I think there's there's some negative things that can take place, obviously, and like I said, I trust our guys, and I trust what I was told, so I consented to it. Yeah.
A little bit better every day. It looked like the run game took a significant step forward. What was different in this game than the previous 5?
Well, I just that we played better. I think, I think we practiced to a certain degree better. I think getting more acclimated to certain things that that we're doing. The basics of the game, execution gets better when fundamentals get better, and that happens when you practice better and practice those things as well as you can. And also, and I've mentioned to our players yesterday, those young guys that invest their time and effort on the scout squad have a lot to do with that. And I've said that every week to them, that they have an impact on the outcome of ball games, depending on how well they help prepare, the offense or the defense. And I thought our scout squad last week did a nice job on our defensive scouts.
Preparation and fundamentals on the defensive side. You guys have made some progress defensively, but this week tackling was an issue. How much of that is poor positioning and fundamentals and just not being good enough, honestly, to get there and get it done?
Well, I don't think being good enough is an issue. I think the execution of it, once again, I think our guys, we don't have guys that are unaggressive. I think they're guys that are not afraid to hit you. Fundamentally, we're not as good as we should be and could be. And more often than anything, it's just, and you see it no matter who you watch, but it's still part of the basics of the game. We're reachers. We're running with our hands out, and you're not going to make a whole lot of tackles that way. So it's just something that they work on it. They practice. Defensive coaches drill it every single day, bar none, and yet it's not getting there, and it's being able to to process the information about how to execute certain things, when they take place in the ball game. I mean, things, even tackles, happen quickly. The guy's here, and then he's over here, and now I've got to tackle him, and you've got to be able to go through the fundamentals of how to do it. And you want it to be natural, so that it's not something that you're always having to think about how to do it. But until that point in time, yes, you do have to process the techniques. And just being able to step on their toes, club your arms through, lock up, and drive your feet. And if you do those 4 things, you probably have some success. Tackling. But they did. And you boil the water out of it. I thought maybe I addressed that afterwards. I'm not sure that I did. But and Baylor's a pretty decent offensive football team. And you go back and look, and for 3 quarters, defensively we played quite well. They got they got 2 touchdowns in 3 quarters, and both of them were over after turnovers, one by the special teams, one by the offense. One of them was, I think, a 17-yard drive, and the other one was a 47-yard drive. Don't quote me exact to the numbers, but that's awfully close, I'm sure. And you know, you take that away, and they've held them scoreless for, which you can't do. I get that, but so you know, I thought for that period of time we played quite well. But then in the fourth quarter, you know, we gave up 185 yards. You know, total offense. That's just too much, and couldn't get the drive stopped. Even though one of the touchdown drives was again off of a turnover, you know, in the fourth quarter. But so you know, playing well for 3 quarters is good, but doesn't get the job done.
And finally, the formula here at Kansas State is pretty tried and true. Special teams have to perform at a high level. You've won a lot of games in really good years and not so good years based on special teams. Those plays are so magnified. You know, there's fewer of them. How problematic has been the special teams these last 2 weeks in games that you could have won?
Well, truly, I mean, to fumble a kickoff is, and it's not just the guy that's catching the ball and running with it. I mean, if you go back and scrutinize, you know, the snap, you know, we missed 2 blocks on the same guy that would have that created the fumble. So it's execution throughout and an assignment throughout, and we're special teams. I mean, you can get a few guys banged up on offense and a few guys banged up on defense, and you can still circumvent that, you know, on that side of the ball. But you know, those are all guys then that are on special teams. So we're kind of searching and reaching to get, enough personnel, you know, and so that we struggle with that a little bit because you got guys playing sometimes out of position and don't have any real backups, you know, right now for them.
I guess that was my final question, though. What's going on in special team, does it kind of expose the depth problems you're going through right now? Not just offensive, defensively, but some of those walk-ons that have been stars on special teams maybe aren't rising up. Well,
you know, when you look at some of the guys that are playing well on special teams, and it's not that, you know, it only takes one, and consequently, you end up with a problem. But you know, we've got some guys that are on there that are, you know, that are not getting on offense or not getting on defense, not getting on the field, that are, you know, on special teams that are doing quite well. I mean, the play of the day was Landry Weber. You know, Landry Weber hadn't been able to get on the field, and he runs down, you know, makes a great hit, you know, on the 14-yard line on a kickoff cover unit, and so on down the road. I mean, but you know, when we get thinned out on both sides of the ball, then that really impacts our special teams as well.
Coach, how much have your third down shortcomings exemplified really the team-wide execution mistakes and shortfalls that you've experienced all season?
Well, you know, we have not been nearly as effective on third down as you would like to. I think, you know, in stages of the game, we were better, I think, but not collectively, you know, as you go through and look at it. I mean, I think we're you know, way down the list in third down conversions on offense. Haven't been as effective on defense as you'd like to as well, but you know, it just it ends drives for your offense, and it enhances drives for your defense. You know, it's just like you know, the last drive of the ball game. Of course, well, that's not a good example because I don't think there was I'm not sure that there was a third down conversion in there, but you know, some of those drives that, you know, go 70 yards, 75 yards, et cetera, defensively, you know, you get the brakes put on one third down, and you know, you're off the field, and it doesn't look near as bad. We've just haven't been as good. I thought, normally, up to this particular ball game, I thought we struggled a little bit with our pass rush on third down. This ball game, I thought the pass rush was much more, effective and much more aggressive, and we did get people upfield, put some pressure on the quarterback, made him, move around a little more than he wanted to, and not be able to throw the ball as rapidly as he would like. But and again, part of it, and this is true on offense and defense as well. Part of it has to, as I always address with our team, an awful lot of it has to do with what you do on first down. And if you have successful first down plays on offense, and you're successful defensively on first down, those third down situations become, the 3rd and 8s, 9s, 10s, as opposed to the 3rds and 1, 2, 3. And obviously, the longer yardage are a little bit more difficult to defend against, and a little easier to convert if you don't have that much, that far to go, normally.
I didn't specify. I was intending mainly on offense. Has part of that consequence been because there's, I don't want to say trust, but just looking for that right ingredient of what works for your offense and what you've been able to execute properly to your satisfaction?
Well, no, not to my satisfaction by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, we've got to be a whole lot better, and but we're capable of being a whole lot better. And and part of it, you got to get into the right things, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Defenses are pretty good about disguising what they do, and you've got to either be in some all-purpose stuff offensively or dressing, or understand exactly what the defense is going to do, so you can get in the best schemes for that particular defensive scheme. And it's been kind of hit and miss in regards to that. So.
I was thinking about this on the drive over today. When it's raining real hard, like it is now, and there's rain forecasts throughout the week, and maybe even on game day, do you make the team tough it out outside all week to prepare for that, or do you move them inside?
Well, it kind of depends on what the anticipation is going to be. We'll play. I mean, we prefer to work outside. Period. Rain or otherwise. Don't always do that. It kind of depends on what we need to do, how focused we need to be in regards to execution for the day. If it's early in the week, if it's later in the week, it's getting close to game time and the anticipation is rain and we're getting bad weather, then we'll still stay outside.
Did you practice outside yesterday?
No, we were indoors yesterday. It was just the first, that's Monday is our first day of practice. Others sometimes practice on Sunday and take Monday off. We're off Sunday and practice on Monday, and so that's that's when you're investing, putting everything in, and just want to make sure that that we're 100% focused on what we're trying to do.
When it comes to kick returns, are you still do you still have faith in Isaiah as the main guy there? Or do you see yourself experimenting with some different personnel this week in practice?
Well, I have faith in Zuber. He's caught 100 kickoffs and punts back there. Didn't do well the other day. Put one on the ground on both the punt return and the kickoff return, but I still trust him. I still have faith that he can be effective back there. He has been before. He certainly can again.
I saw in the game notes that, like you put out, that Eli Walker ranks 19th in the nation in solo tackles per game, averaging more than 5 per contest. He sometimes, looks like a heat-seeking missile out there. Can you speak to just his performance and his improvement in year 2?
Well, I've been pleased with Eli because he has really taken it upon himself to become a knowledgeable player. Eli, as you like you indicated, he can fly around, he can play sideline to sideline, and he's gives you the appearance of that heat-seeking missile, so to speak, sometimes. But that's kind of the way he's gone through, football up to this point in time until he got here. And it just go up and play. It's kind of sandlot football. It's line up and wherever the ball is, you go hit it. And sometimes that gets you out of position and creates more problems than you can create solutions. But what I've been impressed with is he's really taken upon himself to learn the game, to become more knowledgeable about what the opponent does, what he does, what the assignments are, what the execution is, how he works together with other members of the defense and the back end. And he's done a nice job of that, and I think that's helped enhance his ability to play as fast as he does. And he has done well. So.
And real quick, Justice Hill, the running back for Oklahoma State, obviously is a dynamo, and he's rushed for a ton of yards. He hasn't been able to rush for 100 yards against K-State in his 2 meetings against the Wildcats. What's been the key in that regard, and how would you describe him as a player?
Well, I think he's as good a running back as you'll line up and play against. He's got awfully good quickness. I mean, he gets from point A to point B in a heartbeat. He can move, laterally, change directions. He makes people miss. I put it that way. If to hold him under 100 yards is not the answer to the ball game, because they have a very balanced offense. But by the same token, I think when we've whether it's Hill or anybody else, whoever it is, if everybody's where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to be doing, yards are hard to come by. So at the end of the day, as I'd say with our players, it's not that particular opponent. It's it's us. It's what we do. And if we do everything right, then they may get a few yards, but it's not going to be astronomical. And if we don't, then you run a major risk.
Denzel came back for you guys on Saturday. Do you think he'll play this coming week?
The intent is for him to be able to, yeah.
And then Blake Lynch and Elijah Sullivan, are there any updates on their statuses?
No.
Coach, after such close losses the last 2 weeks, how much concern is there just with where the team is mentally dealing with those?
Well, I think that's always has to be a concern. But once again, if you've got competitive young guys and guys that genuinely care and guys that want to be good teammates and guys that have a never say die attitude, so to speak, or not willing to give in, then things will work out and they'll continue to get better. And I trust that our players have that kind of approach to it.
And will Alex Delton be available Saturday?
Don't know.
Justin Hughes made his first career start Saturday, and I know kind of after the game he mentioned, it doesn't really matter to me that I made my first career start in a loss, but he did. He made 11 tackles, and he noted how much a couple of the missed ones bothered him. How did you feel like he did in his first start for K-State? Well,
I think just like you described, he made some very fine plays and some that he'd like to have back, and and for a first-time start, still. He played under those circumstances, played well. I think that's one of the things he very much like Eli Walker that we were talking about, just being able to understand the value of being able to know what your assignment is, being able to process it before the snap of the ball, get yourself in the right place at the right time, and be fundamentally sound. And those are things that he's still learning. But he's made an excellent effort at it. Plays hard, no doubt about that. He talked about missing some tackles, and nobody misses tackles intentionally, but nevertheless, you still have to you have to have a mentality and a discipline about you and a focus in order to execute, whether it's blocking or tackling, doesn't matter, but you still have to execute those things to make them effective. So you can hit the guy, but if he stays up and keeps running, then obviously it's all for naught. But overall, played well.
Now that we're halfway through the regular season, has that kickoff rule change, has it made as much of a difference as maybe you thought? And have you been, and if so, have you been at least happy the way that you guys have adapted to it?
Well, I don't see that it's made a dramatic change. We saw, one team that, that fair caught the ball consistently. Outside of that, everybody else was, catching it and running with it. So I think, everybody, everybody has their own approach to it. I think if they feel like they're not very effective, then they'll probably fair catch it. If they feel like they, have an opportunity, just common sense, and they're probably going to return those. But in our conference as well, there's an awful lot of. It's interesting based on what I've seen up to this point in time, that we've got a lot of guys that they can hit the ball in the back of the end zone. So it's not a matter of will I or won't I? It's a matter of you're not gonna get the chance to. So, and that's true this coming week as well. The Oklahoma State's kicker can, he really they had two safeties against him. Against who was it? Against Texas Tech. So they're kicking off from the 20-yard line. And he hit both of them in the end zone. That's a pretty dynamic leg.
Now, I guess just the last thing I have is I know that Oklahoma State has always been just one of the most dynamic offenses in the country ever since Gundy has been the head coach. Does it just surprise you a little bit, though? They lost Mason Rudolph and they lost a Biletnikoff winner and James Washington, and they still just seem to be chugging along.
Well, they've got, you look at, from an offensive standpoint anyway, you look at Hill and, you look at their quarterback and their running back and, and their wide receivers, and they've got good players, so they've got guys that, have been successful. I think they have a good scheme. They changed defensive coordinators, but offensively, the scheme is the same, and defensively there's some changes, but not collectively. So I think they have good schemes. They're well coached and have got pretty good players.
Wondering, Tevin Jenkins, their right tackle's from Topeka. Do you recall if you guys were involved at all in recruiting with him?
In all honesty, I don't. No.
And also, you mentioned yesterday that defensively you had to make some adjustments because of injuries and how you practice. On offense, when you've got your backup quarterback out, does that change at all how you approach the play calling in a game? Or
Well, you could say yes, it probably does. Probably don't run him as much as we might otherwise, but we have to have that phase of the game. And so that will not change, and maybe not quite as dynamic, but for the most part we'll still utilize that. Even if it's not part of the quarterback run game, he's got to have the ball in his hands anyway. Whether he's throwing it, handing it off, and he's running option, etc. He's always got a chance to get hit. I think Skyler, knock on wood, has been pretty durable. I appreciate that. A great deal, and if not, then you have to move on.
As a follow-up to the quarterback question, you're in week 6 of the season. You have one guy injured without knowing the severity of Alex's injury. If you get a couple weeks down the road and you get another injury at that position, would you think about using the new redshirt rule and maybe using a John Holcomb?
Well, we've given some thought to that, as we speak, but. And we've given John, some opportunities to, work in that capacity. It's just, it's learning an awful lot in a short period of time. It's, he's physically very, very capable, of, what we're doing. But just not being in the system. I mean, there's an awful lot that goes on in a short period of time for a quarterback, and that takes some time to get acclimated to.
I wanted to ask about just, I know you've mentioned in the past that when it comes to defense, you guys have usually focused more on stopping the run, and I know last year it was, at least by the numbers, not, you guys were not great against the pass, but it does seem like if you look at the numbers so far this year, you guys have made some pretty good strides. Do you attribute that more to just having the senior leadership that you have back, or how much of an influence, if any, does Brian Norwood get for just the secondary improvement from last year to now?
Well, I think Brian gets, Brian does a wonderful job. You know, he's an awfully fine coach and a wonderful person. I think Blake has done a nice job of putting all of it together. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, it's players on the field, the players have to play. And, you know, I think we've done well when players have executed what they're assigned to do. And, you know, when they haven't, then, you know, we've struggled a little bit. So it's been, you know, it's been off and on. The numbers, excuse me, the numbers as it relates, probably true on both sides of the ball, but the numbers don't always tell the true story. I mean, you look, you know, we're probably way down. I don't follow it, but as far as the conference is concerned, I'm sure we're way down in terms of defense against the run or the pass, for that matter. I don't know where we stand, maybe halfway, and 6 or 7 maybe against the run, and down at the bottom towards pass efficiency anyway.
Well, you're number 3 in pass efficiency.
Oh, is that right? Are we up there? Okay, so what is it? You've got them in front of you. What is it in regards to pass defense?
7th.
7th, okay. So that's yardage, and as I say, sometimes yardage doesn't always, you know, give you the answer. And that goes back to what I said a little bit earlier. You know, you take away we can't take them away, but the fact that, you know, 2 turnovers put Baylor in a position to score the only 2 touchdowns that were scored in the first 3 quarters. So we gave up yardage during that period of time, but, you know, they had to settle for field goals, and, you know, they missed some of those as well. Got, I think, 2 field goals in 3 quarters. You know, being able to at least get the brakes put on at the right period of time. So, you know, I hate to do that. You know, I hate for them to, you know, it's kind of like we joke about sometimes, but, you know, to bring them all the way down and get them in the red zone and have to stop them down there, just again because of field position as much as anything. You like to get them started at the very front end. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. So.
It's fine.
Coach, the round robin format in the Big 12 started in 2011. And since that time, Oklahoma leads the Big 12 with 53 league victories. Oklahoma State has 45, and K-State is 3rd with 41 league victories since the round robin started. And I look here, and this is the first time in more than 10 years that K-State and Oklahoma State will meet when both are unranked. What does that maybe speak to the competitiveness of the Big 12 right now, or, you know, maybe the cyclical nature of how college football operates?
Well, yeah, I think it probably says a lot, but, you know, you've heard me say so many times, I think top to bottom, you know, and I'm talking about, you know, top 3, top 4, top 5, but, you know, top to bottom, I think I have as much confidence in the Big 12 conference as I do any. I say confidence, I mean, I think it's as strong as virtually any conference in the country. I know you can take issue with that very quickly with the Southeastern Conference, but, you know, again, and as I've said so many times, I mean, anybody can beat anybody on any given day, and, you know, you just have to pick up Sunday morning paper and you know, find that out, you know, across the nation. But you know, but it is a strong league, and you know, a lot of people, you know, see it as being a little bit different than others in regards to the style of play during the course of the season, you know, by virtually, or at least most of the teams. But I think they all, everybody has the capabilities of doing virtually anything and everything that we do in this conference or is done in this conference. But anyway, I don't know if that answers the question, but I see the conference as being, a strong conference. And like I said, it's top to bottom. I mean, you turn around here, nobody gives Iowa State a great deal of credit for, a great deal, and they turn around and, win a ball game and against a very prominent opponent. And so it just adds more fuel to the fire in terms of anybody can beat anybody,